Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather today. I'm meteorologist Al Peterlin, and this is a weather report. I'd like to talk about the weather stress forecast for June 26th. We keep additional graphics at tpatw.com. We also maintain a storefront on patient weather. Looking at the surface map for Friday, we do have nice cooling down of temperatures in the west, and that's because there is that front running all the way from really Montana, cutting across Wyoming down to Salt Lake City and back to LA, and lots of unsettled weather there in the Pacific Northwest. There's an even more active frontal system stretching all the way from Denver across Oklahoma City through St. Louis, up to Cincinnati, across Pittsburgh, even up to New York City, and then up to Bangor, Maine. And note extensive area of unsettled weather from really the high plains to the southern Rockies, across the Ohio Valley, and along the eastern seaboard, and especially across Florida, and just a touch up in New England. Looking at our vitality index, and it's a little different than it's been really for much of the recent portions of the summer, where we have a lot of activity going on in the west, and of course significant activity happening in the south, where we have that Gulf moisture flowing into the south and lots of temperatures heating up. Pressure change is really not that significant at this time of the year, and there isn't much going on for Friday. We do have some falling pressure changes up in Montana, Wyoming, and the westernmost sections of the Dakotas. Just a touch of rising pressure across eastern Michigan and all the way down to the thumb area. Otherwise, pressure falls rather just really stagnant with those stagnant frontal systems. Temperature changes, again, now we're already warming so much that the temperature changes aren't going to be tremendous or drastic, although note up in the Pacific Northwest a really sharp cool down behind that northwestern frontal system, and note how warm we're getting right up here into the Rockies and a little bit even into the Central Plains. The real heat, of course, is down south, but the temperature change is what's significant up here in the Rockies. Also note that Florida, with cloud cover and everything else that's been going on, is really showing a significant jump in temperatures for Friday. Looking at dew point temperatures, and we have almost the opposite effect, where we have rising dew points here where the temperatures are falling in the west. Note the dry line running right up into the portion of, call it Nevada, up into Utah. And then, of course, we have some rising dew points. Vapor pressure is a little bit more dramatic, showing increases in vapor pressure, again, across Florida up the east. Note the increase in vapor pressure across the Pacific Northwest, and the dry down happening just in the westernmost portions of the Four Corners. And that, again, is another enhanced version of the fire risk we've been talking about. That means more smoke pollution in the air. And so when the other kind of health interests, basically particulates, will be of significance here in the west. Looking at instability, you'll see we're shifting this a little bit to the east. We were up the plains most significantly. Now we're pushing up into the Mississippi Valley, trying to make its way into the Ohio Valley. The most significant issue to talk about is the change in oxygen availability, and you can see that we're talking about migraine stresses across most of the west, western Arizona, up through Nevada, up and down California, Oregon, Washington, all the way up into British Columbia. Also looking at Idaho, western Wyoming, western Montana. And as we jump to the east, picking it up here in Kentucky and Ohio, picking up a migraine threat here in the Ohio Valley. Looking at asthma and arthritis, we're really talking about the Four Corners. We're talking about Wyoming. We're talking about eastern Montana. And in the plains, we're talking from Kansas all the way up through South Dakota. Very significant here across Nebraska. We're also picking up an asthma and arthritis risk across Florida. That's a little unusual. And we're talking about eastern Carolina, and trying to pick up some of a risk here in New England. Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather today. Your comments are appreciated, And if you hurt, tell us where you're located.